Look, it is true I have not managed to make everybody happy. 6 years into my presidency, some people still say I'm arrogant and aloof, condescending. Some people are so dumb. No wonder I don't meet with them. And that's not all people say about me. A few weeks ago, Dick Cheney says he thinks I'm the worst president of his lifetime. Which is interesting because I think Dick Cheney is the worst president of my lifetime. Quite a coincidence. I mean, everybody's got something to say these days. Mike Huckabee recently said, people shouldn't join our military until a true conservative is elected president. Think about that. It was so outrageous, 47 Ayatollahs wrote us a letter trying to explain to Huckabee how our system works.
President Obama at the White House Correspondents' Dinner last week, making a pretty good joke about Dick Cheney and a less funny but more specific joke about Mike Huckabee, specifically about Mike Huckabee saying this.
There's no greater heroes to our country than our military, but I might suggest to parents, I'd wait a couple of years until we get a new commander-in-chief.
Parents, don't let your kids enlist in the military while President Obama is in office. Never mind the myriad wars around the world. Just wait until it's President Huckabee in a couple of years. Former Arkansas Governor Mike Huckabee did announce yesterday that he's running again for president. And there are so many contenders and potential contenders for the presidency on the Republican side this year that we are kind of going to get some kind of announcement about someone basically every day between now and the summer. On Monday this week, we got Ben Carson announcing in the morning. Then we got Carly Fiorina announcing in the afternoon. The next day, on Tuesday, we got Mike Huckabee announcing that he would run. Today, we got the announcement that Michigan Governor Rick Snyder would not run and that we might get Rick Santorum by the end of the month. But the Huckabee announcement, I think, provides a particularly good snapshot of something that's going on in Republicanville that does not necessarily make sense in the rest of the country. But because it's going on in Republicanville, it is about to become a persistent, loud hum on the edge of our national politics, just because Republicans are into it, even if nobody else understands it. So here's how it goes. In conservative politics, one of Mike Huckabee's most potent allies has always been Chuck Norris. Yes, Chuck Norris. He is now 75 years old. But Chuck Norris is still the platonic ideal of an action hero to a certain chunk of the Mike Huckabee base. And so it helps Mike Huckabee a lot that he gets to do joint appearances and funny campaign ads with Chuck Norris, like this one when he ran for president in 2008. And now that Mr. Huckabee is running again, he is deploying Chuck Norris again. So as Mike Huckabee was announcing that he's going to run for president again yesterday, Chuck Norris simultaneously was doing an interview with the New York Times, explaining how there is no one better qualified in America to be president than his friend Mike Huckabee. In order to give that interview to the New York Times about Mike Huckabee, Chuck Norris did have to interrupt his regular schedule of writing columns for the conservative conspiracy website WorldNet Daily. And to be fair, a lot of what Chuck Norris writes about for WorldNet Daily is like selling people on his helpful tricks to lose the fat with magic green tea and Chuck Norris probiotics. But when he is not persuading his WorldNet Daily readers to send away for this breakthrough new book on cleansing toxins from your gut, lose weight now, he also, most recently, has been urging his readers to consider the dangers of Jade Helm 15. You have heard by now about the conservative freakout over Jade Helm 15. Jade Helm 15 is a U.S. military training exercise. It's scheduled to take place for 8 weeks starting in July in a bunch of states in the American Southwest. The idea is for Green Berets and Navy SEALs and other special operations troops to do a big training exercise in different kinds of terrain that they might conceivably find themselves in if serving overseas. That's the official stated purpose of Jade Helm. But on the far right fringe, Jade Helm is the first stage of a martial law takeover of Texas. And maybe other states too, or maybe just Texas. On the fringe right, Jade Helm is actually the military setting up prison camps for American citizens. And also there could be something to do with the aliens that are hiding underground Plus, don't forget the blue laser horse thing at the Denver airport, which is definitely involved. Out there on the right, Jade Helm 15 is about a network of underground tunnels where the entrances are disguised by these mysteriously closed Walmart stores, and the tunnels go to secret, deep underground military bases, DUMBs for short. DUMBs. Dumbs, because apparently this is an intelligence test and we're failing. But, you know, if you line the maps up right, if you line up the maps, you can see with your wide opened eyes the network of underground Walmart tunnels. So clearly, those Walmarts with the tunnels and the dumbs, those will be where the Chinese troops will be setting up their headquarters, or maybe the Walmarts are for the enslaved American children who are in the tunnels now, who will have to be moved out of there when Jade Helm starts, because the federal government will use Jade Helm to conquer Texas, and they'll need room for all the new political prisoners, who obviously are all of Texas's armed conservatives. And so, yeah, maybe the Walmarts are where they will stash all the Texas Patriots' guns after the Jade Helm troops take them all away. See, it's in the maps. It's right there.
There are maps circulating that show several deep underground bases around the United States. There are also maps circulating that show tunnels that connect those bases. You will also see how Walmarts connect to some of the bases and some of the tunnels.
Walmart has been in this special kind of partnership in this war against terror with DHS. They could very well be going through a process connecting them to an underground network. And this is a very real situation.
In the document, Texas, Utah, and conservative areas of Southern California are listed as hostile areas.
I hope Jade Helm 15 is not the preparation for or the actual implementation of a roundup of patriotic men who have the capacity to influence and inspire the citizenry to resist a coup against the Republic.
That is a little taste of the Jade Helm 15 right-wing freakout, particularly in Texas. And it's, right? And it's obviously... And so, obviously, the great Jade Helm 15 freakout has become a pretty funny, big national joke.
You know who's calling it a Texas takeover? Lone Star Lunatics. Dallas, Houston, Texas. There's no Texas takeover. The United States government already controls since like the 1840s. And then he left and he came back and just borrow a textbook from a neighboring state. It's all in there.
And yes, it is funny. It's hilarious with a capital Funyun. And of course, the conspiracy theory is being cooked up in Texas. Thank you, Texas. And it's being trafficked by Texas radio host Alex Jones, the king of all internet conspiracies, as well as the man who will supply you with male vitality potions that will make you look more hairy if you take the picture in just the right light. But here's the thing. The military's Jade Helm training exercise is still a ways off. It's not due to start until the middle of July. And despite the mainstream ridicule of this panic, the Jade Helm story isn't going away on the right. Last week, Texas Republican Governor Greg Abbott actually called out the Texas State Guard, directed them to monitor the Jade Helm exercise so Texans know their safety, constitutional rights, and private property rights and civil liberties will not be infringed. He called out the Guard to monitor the U.S. military last week. This week, despite all the ridicule and everybody in mainstream America making fun of this, he's out there touting the decision, defending the decision, not backing off at one iota. Texas Senator Ted Cruz, who's running for president, says he has now written to the Pentagon to demand answers from them about Jade Helm 15 and what's really going on about this purported military exercise. Republican hopeful Rand Paul of Kentucky, Senator Paul, also says that he is looking into this Jade Helm issue. The Mike Huckabee and Chuck Norris show right now is basically equal parts Mike Huckabee for president and be afraid of Jade Helm. The next candidate who we're pretty sure is going to announce on June 1st is Rick Perry. Rick Perry made a little stab at trying to be the voice of reason on the Jade Helm issue, which was interesting. But watch this. Watch this little piece of tape. He's trying to sort of be the voice of reason on this, but then watch how his handlers pull him away in the middle of his comments.
And in the Texas Guard to monitor U.S. military.
You know, I'm
I'm one of these guys. I think it's okay to question your government. I do it on a pretty regular basis. The military is something else. So, I think our military is quite trustworthy. The civilian leadership, you can always question that, but not the minimum.
Folks, he's late.
Governor Perry, real quick, when should we expect an announcement from you?
Governor Perry. He's got to go. He's late for this. Stop talking about it. Pity the poor Republican politician who needs to figure out the appropriate line on this, right? To avoid offending the base, which is upset about this matter, but also needing to not seem insane to the rest of the country. I mean, this is one of those issues that is hilarious to the real world, but is totally serious business in Republican world. And for most Republican politicians, particularly those competing for the Republican presidential nomination, where only Republican-based voters will decide who's allowed to run, if you have a choice between seeming insane to normal people and seeming righteous to the base, which are you going to pick? There's an incentive to pick seeming righteous to the base, even if it is nutty to everybody else. And on the surface level, the U.S. military and even Walmart seem like they would be pretty hardened targets when it comes to conservative criticism, right? You think that those two institutions might be safe. But nothing is immune anymore, not at times like these, even when it comes to the military, right? There's now no alarm that goes off on the right anymore when you get too crazy or when you touch things that are too close to the conservative heart. And so Jade Helm panic is funny. Jade Helm panic, though, is going to be with us for a while. It is hilarious and ridiculous to most of the country, but it is real on the right, and it is fast becoming real politics for real ambitious Republican politicians. Hold that thought.